I call this meeting to order. My name is Meg McGrath Smith, and I am the chair of the Ordinance Committee. This meeting is Tuesday, January 13th, 2026 at 6:30 p.m. And this meeting is taking place here in Holyoke City Hall. And any member of the public is always able to come join us at a committee meeting and come listen in. You can also, of course, access this via Zoom, and that means that there's live Spanish interpretation, both on Zoom and also on Channel 15. So I hope folks are listening and will be able to send us questions afterwards. So to my right, I have Councilor Ann Thalheimer and Councilor and Vice Chair of the Ordinance Committee, Linda Vacan. And to my left, I have Councilor Ezra Rivera and Councilor Mimi Panich. We are together the Ordinance Committee, newly formed as of today. So I welcome all of you. I would entertain a motion for us to take item 1 off the table.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Item 1 is our minutes of December 3rd from our 2025 meeting. And I hope folks had a chance to look it through. I know that not everyone was present for that meeting, but hopefully you were able to look it through. And 3 of us are still remaining from the former committee. Right. So there's a good sense of consensus in the room in terms of what happened in that meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion has been made to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to take up item 2.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Item 2, this was filed to 2024. This is from Jane Manteleschi. This was sent to us from our Assistant City Solicitor. And this is an approval of the zoning ordinance amendment. And this was sent to us as a response. Sorry, I'm just grabbing it really quickly. And I'm hoping that our solicitor is here tonight. I'm not sure they are, to speak to this. Okay, not seeing them on yet. Let's table this item for now and see if they join us later. I'll make a motion.
To table.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Motion to take up item 3.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Item 3, this was filed for myself, that an ordinance be drafted regulating the number of cars that can be parked on a residential property. And I do also want to name that we have a number of folks who have joined us on Zoom. I see Councilor Patty Devine. Thank you for joining us on Zoom. And I also see Davin Pasick, who is our Ordinance Compliance Officer, and Kelly Kern, HR Director. And in the chambers, we also have Rory Casey, our Treasurer. We also have Sharon Bittner, and we also have our Mayor, Joshua Garcia. Okay, so Councilor Devine, you initially had done a lot of work on this with me. Do you want to initially frame the issue that we've been thinking through around item 3?
Sure, thank you. It was, somebody had told me about this situation at 170 Mountain View Drive, and I believe you may have been told by the same person. And both of us did go up there on separate occasions to look at it, and it's really incredible the number of cars that are parked in the driveway, parked in the backyard, parked on the lawn. And we both filed a couple orders. The latest will come out at our next city council meeting, where we are asking about ambulance service. Can ambulance service get up there? I absolutely doubt that they could. And also any emergency vehicle, should there, God forbid, be a fire there, how people would get rescued. So we're working on it, and I think that we've had a lot of help from the law department, from the health department, and I appreciate that, and I know Councilor McGrath does as well. So we're trying.
Thank you so much. I also want to name on Zoom that we do have Councilor Bissonette, who has joined us. Councilor Bissonnette, I've received a few communications informally from the law department thinking through this issue. And it's been suggested that there are sort of two parallel options to take in order to make sure that there's a way for us to enforce what's already in zoning. I'll read what's in zoning right now. So zoning 6.1.8, which is our residential driveways section, says on residentially zoned lots, driveways shall be constructed within the side yard as illustrated below in figure 1 and 2. And then there's the two figures there. And then it says at least 50% of the front yard as defined herein must be designated as a landscaped open space. Parking areas shall not be allowed between the house and the street of any residentially zoned lots, and no vehicle may be parked in the landscaped open space area of any front yard. And so it does seem pretty clear that we have this in zoning. But zoning, as all of you know, is more connected to new properties or to construction that is moving forward in many ways. And there's not an easy enforcement structure, or in this case, any enforcement structure that allows us to then respond if there is an issue on a pre-existing lot. So there's sort of two options here. One suggestion was that we could move forward with just trying to create an enforcement structure in the zoning ordinance itself, which would mean, in many ways, almost giving how it's been currently filed leave to withdraw and refiling underneath a public hearing, going through the public hearing noticing process. There's another parallel option of potentially just putting it in a different section of the ordinances underneath enforcement, rather than putting it under zoning. So I would love to hear what other folks in the committee think. And I know that our ordinance compliance officer, Devin Pasek, is here. We have Mike Bissonnette here. I'd love to just sort of air the options here and try to decide on a path forward so that we can figure out what we're going to do to make sure that we can uphold the ordinances that we have. Yes. Solicitor Bissonnette, do you want to weigh in first? Or share anything from the law department?
Well, good evening.
Thank you. You too.
The review done by Jane seems to offer two alternatives. One would be the lengthy route for changing the zoning ordinance. The other would be a change to, I believe it's Chapter 86, for enforcement, which would add a $300 a day fine. Let me point out that they are not mutually exclusive. So tonight, this committee could recommend off the agenda item that method for enforcement by making it a violation, and then deal with it in a different context, the context of the zoning ordinance and how you do enforcement for that financially. There are other stop work orders and other types of actions that can be taken, but I think a dual track here may be appropriate, and that would be my thought. Let me know Mr. Pasek has some thoughts as well.
Mr. Pasek, thank you for joining us.
Yep, no problem. So, yeah, I just wanted to correct one thing. The parking in the front yard is a violation that can be issued and actually has been issued in this case. I just recently got confirmation that they received my violation. They're yet to make contact, but typically I would send a violation, get proof that they've received it, which can take up to a month, even longer. If they don't respond, then a second violation and probably a warning ticket will be issued. And it kind of goes on from there. There can be a third and fourth violation, and the tickets progressively get higher. Mr. Bissonnette already mentioned that it can go up to $300 a day, which is something I have used and will probably use in the future. But I did want to say that, yes, a violation has been issued officially.
Thank you, Mr. Pasek. Councilor Penich, then Councilor Rivera.
Thank you. I just wanted to point out here that this is a problem that we have in other contexts. And one of the letters that recently came into the city council from the planning board points out that we already actually have rules saying that it's illegal to put those commercial signs on various bits of city property. And we suggested that we go back into the zoning ordinance or the general enforcement ordinance and think about whether we needed to just increase the fines, since they're already illegal under our zoning ordinance. So approaching this may solve many problems at once.
Councilor Rivera?
Yes. Do we have pictures of the cars? Like the actual situation that we're talking about?
Oh, sorry, I realize I'm not muted, but yes, I do have pictures, or we do. I could email them. I don't know how.
Yeah, if you can. And then the other thing, Mr. Pasek, when you, do you normally go through the city looking for cars that are parked in the front yard?
No. That would be a full-time job in and itself. But it's really based on complaints.
I just don't want to feel like we're singling a particular person out because you can blatantly see it. Because if we're doing this, then we should do it throughout the whole city on a regular basis. At least that's
Absolutely.
my
Yeah, totally
perspective.
agree.
And that's it for me.
Yes, I think in general, when this issue did present itself, there was surprise at the number of cars and the fact that they keep increasing. And neighbors have sort of been flummoxed for a while. And as it sort of spills even beyond, now to the street, there's questions, right, around why it's happening. And I think that there's been a lot of different folks who have attempted to intervene, whether it's, the fire department or the police department, trying to figure out just what's going on. And is this safe? Is there egress? Is it possible for emergency vehicles to get through? I mean, it's all of that. But I think it was more that this order came to ordinance not just to fix a single issue, but because it was surprising when we looked at it, trying to think through, this is actually sort of a complicated issue, and why is it so complicated? Why isn't it so simple? Because it feels like it should be, that we have this zoning ordinance that makes very clear, where cars can park or can't park, and it doesn't seem like we have a really clear enforcement structure in order to respond to it. But it may just be, based on what you're saying, Mr. Pasek, that it's not that we don't have an enforcement structure, it's that the fees themselves either need to be higher or there needs to be sort of a tweak made. Mr. Pasek, do you want to respond to that before I let some other counselors weigh in?
Yes, I would. I just had something in my head. And I will kind of elaborate on this issue, and it's kind of a weird loophole, because yes, this issue sprung up, and a lot of times when there's an issue with lots of cars, they are unregistered or junked cars, which is kind of a completely different issue. These vehicles all have plates and are all theoretically registered. They pay the excise tax on them. I think one of the issues is we as the city don't know what he's doing with them besides collecting. They don't seem collectible to us, but another avenue of enforcement would be if he's selling them regularly or fixing them up and then selling them, which there's no evidence to suggest that he is. So really, my enforcement order was the first, even though Board of Health tried to go after him and some other people tried to go after him, just based off of the parking on the front yard. So we're hoping that that at least starts a dialogue. I don't know if that answered your question. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. All right, I see Councilor Bacon and Councilor Devine.
So I just wanted to contribute that we have had parking in the front yard addressed in Ward 5 occasionally over the years, and it was resolved through the methods that have been described tonight. This one sounds a little bit unusual, and what we have seen a little bit more of are people operating businesses out of residential, and that is a difficult thing to prove. And so it becomes a challenge in that regard, but we already do have ordinances against that. It becomes a matter of proving it. So, while I think we do need to have ordinances that allow us structure to address problems like this, I'm a little hesitant to create a whole zoning ordinance for one problem. But that's just to share a little bit of information.
Thank you. Counselor Devine? Is your hand up again, or is that from before? Okay, I think it was from before. I also want to name that we've been joined by Council President Tessa Murphy-Ramboletti. Thank you for joining us. Okay, so I guess I'd love to hear at this point, either back from Solicitor Bissonnette, just around, does it make sense that we have what we need in order to respond here, or does it make sense for the law department to propose legal language in terms of a shift to ordinance for the next time we meet?
We certainly could do that, Madam Chair, in terms of the zoning ordinance itself. And that could be the basis of an additional order going forward, certainly. But again, as you know, that's a different process.
Yes. Okay, Councillor Panich?
Yeah, if I may, I would hold off on asking for anything to be done through the zoning ordinance at this point. And for one thing, I agree with both Councillor Vacon and Councillor Rivera. We don't want to single this one person out. And if our previous methods of enforcement have worked, we might as well rely on them before we make a fuss about it. But the other thing is, as some of you already know, there's going to be an enormous package of proposed zoning reforms coming within the next few months. And planning has put approximately 1 million hours, along with the law department, into putting these together. And I suspect that the enforcement problem, as it relates to signs and the sign ordinance in general, will be included in that package. So if this is still a problem, then we might as well take it up then.
Okay. Solicitor Bissonnette, if you would work with the law department to look into this order and see if there's any proposed language outside of the zoning ordinance that we need to tighten or make more clear, we could look at it at the next ordinance meeting in 2 weeks.
Be happy to.
Thank you. Okay.
Motion to table.
Yes. Is there a second?
Me.
Oh, I'm so
Excuse me.
sorry. Councillor Devine. Yes,
I have
you're
my
there.
hand up.
Oh, I'm
I
so
just
sorry.
wanted- That's
Yes, go
okay.
ahead.
I just wanted to let you know that I did go up by there today because I knew this was going to be coming up on the agenda tonight, and there is a new car close to the road, excuse me. I believe it was with New York plates, and again, I'm not a police officer, but I think just because a car has plates on it doesn't mean it's registered. We can't see if there's a sticker in the front because they're all pulled in, and I'm not trying to single out one particular household, but that's the call that I got, was from up there. And if I got other calls in other neighborhoods, I would certainly do the same thing. So I'm not trying to pick on anybody, but I would urge you people to go up there and take a peek, because it's really incredible. And like I said, I got a call, and I believe Meg got a call. And again, maybe it's going on throughout the city, but nobody's called me about it. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and we have a motion to table in a second. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much for folks who waited on that. I really appreciate it.
Motion to take up item 4.
Can we take 4 and 5 together as a package?
Motion to suspend rules and take up items 4 and 5 as a package.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, item 4. McGrath-Smith ordered that the necessary changes in ordinance be made in order to establish a finance department and the roles and responsibilities of its members. And McGrath-Smith, item 5, ordered that the council holistically review minimum qualifications for all job descriptions for an established finance department based on the longtime DLS guidance to ensure internal controls, clear lines of accountability, and appropriate education and skill level. And I want to invite our guests in, if you will come on in. Again, we have the treasurer, we have Shannon Bittner, and we also have the mayor here. Also on Zoom, we have TJ Plant, who is the financial consultant who has been stepping in to support us in our process here to become fully reconciled and to do all the things that are required of us by the DLS in order to be fully certified. All right, thank you, everyone. You've sent a lot of documents to the committee for us to go through and redline, and I think it likely makes sense. I know you have a presentation. To start by giving your presentation and your framing and your thinking, and then we'll open it up for a general discussion here in the committee.
Great, and is Jeffrey able to run the presentation, or should I?
Jeffrey, are you able to run the presentation?
This is referring to the PDF you sent?
There's an actual PowerPoint. I'll share you. Give me 1 second, Jeffrey. I'm just logging into the Wi-Fi. And while I'm doing that, I'm sure the mayor might just want to give you a quick overview on where we're at, how we got here, and what we're hoping to accomplish.
Do you want an overview,
What'd you say?
Madam Chair? Where we're at, where we're going, what we're hoping to accomplish?
Yeah, I'd love to hear an overview and some framing, and then the presentation.
All right, so what Rory is going to present to you is all of what we've been talking about probably for about 6 months to a year or so, and it's a restructured framework of how to better manage our resources internally. And so we've for 20 plus years or so have seen reports over and over, material deficiencies identified in the audit, recommendations made by the Division of Local Services in how we can better improve those. And previous administrations, I believe, have made some version of an attempt. It's complicated stuff. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of hours. Obviously, to date, we've kind of made it our top priority to do what we can to implement these changes, establish or try to understand a framework that will work for Holyoke, so that we can proceed forward and have a better foundation to keep up with what's expected by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts when it comes to managing our resources. And so Rory has there a presentation just to rehash what our current framework looks like and how does that compare to the new systematic structure, and a comparison side by side in the annual budget of what we're operating with and how much it costs, and if we were to restructure, what are we looking at for costs under that new model. Or did you have the presentation up? So, Mr. Treasurer, go for it.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. So just to go through this pretty quickly, the mayor's already kind of explained how we got here. This has obviously been part of a conversation for well over a year now, and really, in the past 9 months is when we were really trying to get things accomplished. So there hasn't been many changes from the previous go-around. Jeffrey, if you just want to kind of breeze through the first couple of slides, we can just go through them. So this is essentially what the mayor just spoke about. We can go to the next one. So this is Jeffrey. I think you're using the wrong presentation. It's the one.
Okay,
it's the one I just shared you on.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought it was the same one you sent last week.
Nope.
Just
No worries.
one moment.
Yeah, the wrong one. You are looking at one that's a little out of date, because you can see in there it's referencing fiscal 26 and not 27. So this updated one has all of that. We have the updated numbers, and we can. That's really very few slides were changed. It's just some dates got increased, got changed.
Hard copy?
Yeah?
Well, does Jeffrey have it and he can give it to us?
Yes, absolutely.
Great,
Yeah.
thanks.
Sure. No, but just so we're clear, there's not many changes from what you guys have. There's like 3 slides that were deleted and a couple of slides updated. So there's really not many material changes. This is something that you wouldn't have received that we can hand out right now. This is the side-by-side budget comparison. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to hand this over to you. There you go. And then Counselor McGrath Smith asked if we could also have the updated Schedule A, what would be proposed, which is this right here. There you go. And so you can see on the slide right here that we made some, it's budget neutral now in 27, because that's where we'd be talking about many of these changes fully being implemented. We've already budgeted for 26. We can't really make changes to that. And then when we start seeing the cost savings, originally, if we had had everybody in place, we could have started realizing some of those savings in the upcoming fiscal year. But, with everything kind of pushed out a year, we still project a minimum of $100,000 in cost savings, and we can get into what that is all about. So Jeffrey, if you want to go to the next slide. And this really just talks about the accountability. Again, the mayor touched on this. We've discussed this before. TJ's here and really can dive into the nitty-gritty of what improved accountability looks like, what that means at the ground level for folks. And then we can go to the next slide, which is the existing finance structure. There was one change. This would be a slide that if you were comparing side by side, there would be a change because in the 25 budget, which is what this slide originally represented, there was an administrative assistant position in the assessor's office. That position was removed as part of the fiscal 26 budget, so we didn't want to artificially include a position that no longer exists. So that's why we felt it was important to update this, because this is what was budgeted for in 26 and the way things are currently organized. I'll just point out that the CAFO position was budgeted, but the position itself was never created. So it was a budgeted position, just not one we could fill. And then if you want to go to the next slide, Jeffrey. And I imagine this slide we'll come back to and spend a lot of time on. This is what the proposed structure looks like. And I know the last time the previous council had some questions about what's union, what's not, what's new, what's changing. And so we included a key here, and I do have printouts if folks need it, that just shows, is it ordinance? Is it a union position? Is it a new position? Is it being merged, or is it a title change? So we have positions that currently exist, and you might have a position, in the treasurer's office that's called one thing, a position in another office called a different thing, and really they're very similar positions. We just want to make it uniform. So those two positions, for example, would be called financial analyst. I'm just using one example of what we mean by merged or title change. Same thing with audit, right? It's the director of internal audit versus auditor. I know that question has come up, and quite honestly, we'll get more into the meat of that, but we kept director of internal audit just because that had already been reflected on so many other things that we had. We just felt it was easier to keep that title. Yes.
Pardon, Councilor Rivera has a quick question.
Yeah, can you go back to the financial analyst piece that you were talking about, or how
Yeah.
it was merged and it changed? Because I'm looking at it here and I'm like, wait, we didn't have that last time. So like,
Correct.
So if you can,
You did have it last time. There was one position called financial analyst, but as we've been refining this, because as we've said all along, we're constantly talking, we're constantly trying to refine, what's going to work best. And looking at not just the way the schools reorganized a number of years ago, but how similar municipalities have organized. Rather than having like a deputy treasurer or a deputy auditor or a deputy purchasing director, and you look at what their job descriptions are, you look at what they're actually doing, they're doing very similar things. So it becomes a financial analyst. And we will get more into the budget piece that I handed out. That is in this presentation, but I printed it separately just because I knew you wouldn't have that tonight.
thank you.
Councilor Thalheimer also has a quick
Yeah.
question.
I just wanted to ask very briefly in this, just to ensure no one is losing their jobs in this restructuring. Everyone was
Correct.
still excellent. Thank you.
Yep, that is absolutely correct. So Jeffrey, if you just want to go to the next slide, we can just get into what the kind of high-level positions are, and that's what we focused in here. We did provide job descriptions for all of the positions, just about all the positions. There's a couple that there really is, we're not talking about them this evening, so I mean, we can provide them, but when we're talking about new ordinances or new positions, those are the job descriptions that got provided. So we have the Chief Administrative Financial Officer, the CAFO. We can see with that person, kind of high level, what they would be doing. One important thing to note is that while the audit position exists on this organizational chart, they don't report directly to the CAFO. They're an independent. They would become part of this, kind of overall financial department, but they would report to the mayor, so that there's kind of a separate piece. They're very independent. So I just wanted to point that out, because if you do the math and you see overseas 16 members and you actually look at that org chart, there's two positions that, there's two more positions that aren't there. So I just wanted to point that out. And if you want to go to the next slide, brings us right to the Director of Internal Audit. We do have with us this evening our interim auditor, who has really been helping delineate the responsibilities between what an auditor should be doing, what a comptroller would be doing, and working and kind of through some professional development, through some research, really has a great handle on how this would shape up. So, these are just some of the things that the Director of Internal Audit would be doing. It really is trying to strengthen the auditing role in some ways. Just like we could say with the treasurer's position, there's so many things that it's hard to do so much. With the auditor's position, there's some similar things, right? And just whoever gets hired into that is kind of tasked with all these things. Like all of a sudden, you're responsible for munis roles and permissions, but maybe you've never even used the system before. But so these types of things we've really kind of broken out, and we'll spend some more time talking about. If you want to go to the next slide, Jeffrey. This is the treasurer collector. I think we've spent a lot of time talking about treasurer collector, treasurer tax collector. This model calls for a treasurer collector position. And, again, right now, like one core function of the treasurer's office that would move is payroll. That's a big piece. Overseeing the payroll processing would move into the comptroller position, which I believe we get to next, if you'd like, Jeffrey. And again, you can kind of see here they oversee the payroll function. They would be the one actually creating and presenting financial orders, working directly with the CAFO or the mayor, the city council. They would be responsible for the preparation. Right now, we pay a third party to prepare our balance sheet and our Schedule A number of other state tax filings. The comptroller would do that, so that in and of itself is a cost savings, because or at least neutral, right? We'd be stop paying somebody else, we'd be doing it ourselves, and we're one of, honestly, I mean, the mayor's been on these calls. The state was pretty shocked when they heard we were contracting that work out and not doing it internally. They couldn't give us an example of another community our size. You might have a small town with 300 people in it that does that, but not necessarily a city the size of Holyoke. And then if you want to get to the next one, Jeffrey, the Director of Technical Assistance. So right now, just about 100% of our IT work is contracted out. The IT provider we have has told us, again, there's no other community our size that does that. There's at least one, if not multiple people internal that can kind of help manage the contract, manage certain things. They've stopped servicing Munis or Tyler ERP, so this year we had to actually pay somebody, about $75,000, a contractor, to manage that for us. It's something we could easily be doing in-house. It's just we didn't have the skill set or the knowledge, and it was a switch got flipped. It was all of a sudden one day they said, we're not doing this anymore, and that was that, and we needed to find somebody. So we did. But again, things we could be doing internally. There's a lot of data collection, the way we use data, the way our systems interact with each other. Having somebody here right now, we've been contracting a lot of this work out. This would just give us an opportunity to bring that work in-house, which has been the recommendation of just about everybody that we've met with and talked to. And so if you want to get to the next slide, the format on this is just a little bit different, so it fits into a slide, but it's the same document that was just handed out. And what this does is it shows what was budgeted in fiscal 26. So the number of positions, the salaries, everything down. The expense lines down below, or to the right on this slide, represent those the three main lines for the IT, computer software and systems, and then the Munis, and then we have professional assessment services, and we have professional. It's the same. It's this. Do you have this? I have this one. Yes, it's the same thing. It's just formatted. I took some of the rows and moved it to the side. It's the, probably because my head's in the way. Sorry, counselor. Yeah, that's what I did. It's all the same data. It's just formatted slightly different so that it would fit neatly into a slide. That's all. And so the bottom line, which is what folks usually want to go to, is even with these positions merging, consolidating, keeping realistic numbers in year one for some of these expense lines, computer software, so on and so forth. Even the system administrator, right? Like 75,000, leaving it at 20 as just a cushion, just in case, right? Because who knows when we'll be able to hire anybody or when folks will be able to start. That brings us to a budget neutral. So what we expect what the mayor would be presenting for fiscal 27 to the council would be pretty much on par with what was budgeted in fiscal 26. And with the idea that there's opportunity, real opportunity, not pie in the sky, real opportunity to reduce contracted service lines throughout the city and within our IT budget to be able to, see cost savings in the future years. So, and so that's our presentation. It's just some of the updates, and any of us, TJ, I will just say, I know Kelly Curran wanted to be here in person. She had to be out of town for a funeral, and has been trying to stay on. She texted me that she was having some hard times, some technical issues, so she may or may not be here. And if not, that's the reason why. So.
Thank you, Mr. Casey. I also wanted to thank Nicole Masonette for being on Zoom with us. And I think it's your birthday. So way to be in a subcommittee meeting on your birthday. Commitment.
Thank you.
Okay, so I would love to ask TJ Plant if you would not mind introducing yourself to the committee. I know some of us have met you, of course, others have not, and give just a sense of who you are and the work that you've been doing for the city, and a sense of your thoughts around the new positions and the job descriptions that we have in front of us.
Thank you, Counselor. My name is TJ Plant. I am the former Chief Administrative and Financial Officer of Springfield for nearly 12, 13 years in that role, but numerous roles over 17 years in Springfield. I left Springfield to go to Open Architects, which is a data consulting firm along with a financial consulting firm. So we do financial consulting for cities, towns, municipalities, and also school districts. And as part of this transition to the Modernization Act that is happening in Holyoke, or currently under debate, is moving to this modern form of government. And this is an important step for most municipalities. There are a lot of municipalities that are taking steps like this, if not similar to this. So if you look at a CAFO, and ultimately the rest of I'll call it a cabinet, but the rest of the finance division, you definitely want to be able to professionalize it. And it's not always just called a CAFO. It could be called a chief financial officer, could be called a director of administration and finance, could be called, town manager with a focus on administration and finance. So there's all different iterations, and the one that I've been working with the mayor and Rory and the team is what would work best for Holyoke. And this is well underway before I got involved in trying to lend some expertise and or insight. And it's one of those that seems to really fit to the challenges that are facing Holyoke. Having been with Holyoke now for a little over a year in different capacities helping out, you get to see where some of the pitfalls are and some of the challenges that the mayor, the council, and the city are facing as it relates to some of the financial stuff. And that's really what comes down to the essence of this is professionalize the staff, get the proper folks in the right seats of the bus, and then be able to really transform the finances and even operations for that matter, because there's going to be a lot of questions asked of department heads to, really explain if they need to transfer or why, or if you end up doing a bond issuance to do some capital improvements planning items, then you have the ability to dig in and ask the questions by someone that's been in it and through it and kind of understands the questions to ask. Because in a lot of places, certainly that I've been in, a lot of folks don't even know the right questions to ask. And so when you have a team of dedicated experts, you have the ability to say, okay, why are we doing this? Why are we, we just had a great conversation, I believe it was earlier today, about just the Munis upgrade and the Munis implementation and what the power that has on the city of itself, of just record keeping and workflow. And some of this may get into too much detail, but it was a great conversation of how do we want to make this look and make it work, because you've paid for the Munis upgrade and now it's just the ability to utilize it. and it'll cut across every department that is on the list to the Municipal Reform Act. So I think it is the right move for Holyoke at this time. I think it has been a heavy lift, but I think the questions have been great. And I think, the more we flesh out these questions, I think it's just going to make a better end product.
Thank you. At this point, I'd like to open up to the committee for questions. I know I have a number of questions. I'm sure you do as well. These could be general questions. They could be, asked of anyone in the room, or they could just be posed in general, and then the person who's ready to leap in and answer that question will sort of jump into the fray. Councilor Penich?
Hey, this one is really background, but I assume there are a fair number of ordinance changes and possibly even charter changes that need to be done to accomplish this. Do we have drafts of those?
So one thing that we talked about in terms of this next layer of this process, because what's in front of you, we're a new ordinance committee.
Yeah.
And so when I put forward these two orders for us to start this process with this new council and this new committee, newly formed, I reached out to the treasurer and I said, I would like us to start with the big picture first and then go into the ordinances, because last time I felt like as we were going through the process, we were making these massive changes just to the org chart while we were redlining ordinances. So separating those two processes out and getting to a sense of consensus around, yes, these are the right job descriptions, these are the right qualifications, this is the right org chart, and then asking the law department to draft the ordinance changes that will be necessary and the charter changes necessary for us to then dive into the ordinance language.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense to me. I think, you want to know what you're doing before you draft an ordinance to do it. But I just was concerned about whether I had homework to do that I hadn't done.
Not at all. Councilor Bacon.
Thank you. So my first question is how we would marry this, which appears like it will occur sometime down the road, with our current charter that says we must hire a qualified treasurer on the first Monday of February. And at this time, we haven't even posted the position. So it seems like that is conflicting with this. So I'd just like to understand how those will be somehow merged, how that will work practically and financially. And on the economics, looking at some of the numbers here, those are numbers we had previously, and I've heard our consultants say we would need more for the CAFO if we're sticking with CAFO. And I've heard that we would need more for treasurer or treasurer collector. So I'm just wondering if these numbers hold up given the newer information we've been receiving. And I'm sure things will get fine-tuned as we're going forward. I find it a little jumping the gun to be looking at job descriptions. I mean, we need to kind of do it hand in hand, but we're looking at job descriptions for positions that we don't have in ordinance yet, or have, where we are with that, they will need to be parallel if they're going to move.
Yep.
But I hear you on starting from the macro instead of starting out with a boilerplate draft copy of an ordinance.
Yes.
I think it's a better process. Thank you. So I'd be interested in that information going forward. Not this minute.
Yeah, so I don't know if the treasurer or the mayor wants to speak to just that transition process of, clearly this isn't something that we're going to be able to have completed by the first Monday in February. So what does the transition look like in the meantime?
Oh, I mean, the reality is even if the position of treasurer was posted today.
Yeah.
It was?
No, I said even if it were to be posted today, the reality is you're not gonna have that position filled, because, the
Posting requirements. Or it has to be posted for 2 weeks anyway.
And there's no internal candidate to move into a solitary treasurer position the way it's currently constructed. So we'd be looking for somebody on the outside. So, you know, the mayor has the authority under state law to appoint an interim treasurer for 60 days and make sure that we still have something in place, you know, on February 3rd. You know, and that's I believe what the intention is and what we've been talking about internally. And hopefully we can get through this pretty quickly so that that temporary appointment goes away and a treasurer collector is able to be appointed.
Thank you.
If I may, through the chair, follow up.
Yes, Councilor Bacon.
Thank you. So I would note that it was a year ago that the voters approved an appointed treasurer position, and it was no later than the first Monday in February or sooner if the position was vacated. And since that time, the ordinance to create the position was slow-walked for the better part of a year. We finally got it done in November, but the full council voted to post the position. It's a council appointment. We voted to post that position on November 6th. And it's simply been ignored. The city council is the appointing authority for the treasurer.
No,
So-
you're 100% correct. And if this council wants to appoint a treasurer, it doesn't matter if it's posted or not. This council, if 7 members of this council want to say a name at your meeting on February 3rd, you will have whatever name you say will be the treasurer.
Through the chair, if I may.
Yes.
I'm not really trying to make a point about the process of appointing a person. I am fully aware of how we appoint a person to a position. What I'm objecting to is the fact that the full council unanimously asked for the position to be posted on November 6th, and it was just simply ignored. This is the will of the voters that we are implementing here. And I understand full well there's another goal, and it's been articulated, and I've been called an obstructionist because I haven't gone for it hook, line, and sinker. I understand all these things and all these dynamics. But right now, we are thwarting the will of the voters after we spent a year convincing them it was the thing that they should do. And now it is the language in our charter. So now, to do this thing that is in front of us, one piece of it, we have to go back and change the charter again because it took us so long to do the treasurer part, which was on the table again for a year, which I think had the unanimous support of the council. You know, so I don't think any of us are against moving forward and trying to consolidate some things, but we are the representatives of the voters. This is what they voted for us to do, and now we're sitting here a year later and we have done nothing. Well, we haven't done nothing. We've created the qualifications and we've set the salary. But we have done nothing to fill the position. To say that we should all sit in the room and just pick a name would be completely irresponsible, and I don't know of any member of the council that would want to sit there and do that without the benefit of the posting and some qualified applicants, which was the whole reason we did it in the first place. So thank you for your indulgence, and I'm objecting to this process strongly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bacon. All right, I see Councilor Rivera.
Thank you. Not to relitigate or rehash half of the stuff that happened over the past year or so, but my understanding was that the people voted to eliminate the treasurer's position as an elected position. It's making sure that we're saying things correctly. And then the other piece is that we tried for a whole year almost to pass something, and others did not agree. So we had an election, and the election voted in favor of the councilors that wanted to work with the Modernization Act. So in reality, this is the will of the voters, because the voters voted in the ballot box. Had they made a decision different, we wouldn't have won. That's just a fact, right? But back to the point. So my point here is, right, with the questions that I have for you guys is, how much do we pay out in contracted services, right? When we're talking about like, if we're gonna remove certain positions and then create financial analysts, and we're saying that some of that work is already being done in contracted services, how much are we paying so that we know how much we're saving? So that way we can do the math and saying, hey, if we're gonna add a financial analyst, it costs us $100,000 a year to contract out that work. The financial analyst might cost us 80, right? So it's like that kind of information for me. And then the other piece is, does it have to be that we're doing all of this all at once, right? Do we get the comptroller now, all three financial analysts right now? Can it be that we just get one financial analyst, plan for the comptroller 2 years down the road or whatnot? Same thing with the other two financial analysts, because there is a situation where we can do some of this or most of this, all of this, but I feel like we can do it at the same time as we're building it out. Because if we've been hearing everything is tight with regards to taxes, budget, and all the other stuff, and I'm hearing that if we want to save, we got to cut somewhere. Not to say that I want to cut here, but if there's an opportunity to build out a little slower so it's not impacting the budget at the end of the season and impacting people's pockets, I would totally be in favor of that and would love to hear that out. I'm totally in favor of the modernization process and all the stuff we're doing, but at the same time, given our current climate and with regards to what the tax bills have been and will be next year again, and people talking more trash, for lack of better terms, regarding that, I have to take into consideration too, at the same time, while we're building this out, how is that going to look like when we're sending out the tax bills at the end of the year?
Yeah, I just want to be very clear on this financial analyst, because I think we're getting hung up on it, and I understand why, because it's a new title. That's 3 positions that currently exist. It's just titles being changed. Just so we're clear, it's not contracted services. It's not a special new position. It's creating a uniform approach. These are NAGE union positions. There would have to be some bargaining with the union, which is why it's in front of you tonight. But if you see it, it doesn't require any ordinance change, right? So that would be a conversation that would have to happen with the union. On the budget sheet, it's 3 positions. It's not one position at $176,000 annually. It's 3 positions that currently exist, and
Which 3?
they're in payroll specialist, an assistant accountant, and the assistant treasurer position.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just wanted to clarify, just as far as, and I can feel some of the emails and tags on social media coming in from misguided information. But just to be clear, although this order was passed, I think it was in November you're referring to, Councilor, right? The order of unanimous vote to post the position. It wasn't until just last week you voted to get the role and the salary reflected in the Schedule A. And it is the practice of the city not to post positions that don't exist Schedule A, because, I mean, if that was the practice, I would have hired a CAFO already by now. And even now with the Schedule A reflected, I know that there's still some more deliberations going, and I don't want to put the cart before the horse if things are going to change again later. I mean, here we have a proposal of consolidating the treasurer collector's office. If there was a candidate to hire a treasurer next week, now we have a treasurer and a collector. Well, how do we consolidate the two? Now we got 2 bodies, one or the other potentially losing out. So I just want to make sure that when we're ready to pull the trigger and go forward, that we have a framework, a clear directive from this body on the framework, so that we're not creating any redundancies or slowing down our process at all. But again, it wasn't that we refused to post because of an order. It was because the position or the salary just wasn't voted on and reflected in the Schedule A, and that was just done last week. But either way, even if it was done at that time, I'm well within my authority to manage accordingly and what we have in front of you is something we've been working on. And things were said, opposite was done. We're all working together, trying to figure things out. We went backwards, and my administration is very serious in the direction that I want to go. And I think that the voters were very clear in this direction. And so we're going to continue to work with the council, and I'll move forward as soon as there's a clear consensus in the directive that we all want to go after you've done your due diligence, do this work.
Thank you.
Jim, I wish to respond since that was directed at me.
If it's possible to do it briefly, I just know that with
I will be
time,
brief.
It's 7:30, and I really want to get into the questions and the job descriptions that I have.
I will be brief, but I do want to be clear. The city council had set a salary. If you had to put a little different number on Schedule A to make it, because it didn't fit right in the box, that was not a violation of any law or ordinance. So it had been completed. And I would further wish to clarify that on the ballot that the people voted for, it said to change the treasurer from an elected position to an appointed position. It did not eliminate the treasurer. It further said that an ordinance shall be created establishing the qualifications of the treasurer. Those things have been done, the salary has been set. And I know in the Modernization Act, there is a goal to combine those two positions. Right. There are also other positions that can be combined within the framework that has been provided to us from the state. It's not only those two positions that could be combined, others could be as well. But we have a charter. We have charter language that the state just approved relative to the treasurer. I don't think any of us can just ignore that. And, you know, I guess you can argue my points, but my points are in law. It's the charter of our city. I guess if we're just going to ignore it, well.
Thank you.
Management. I think that my role as mayor is pretty clear, and I don't think I've done anything illegal or against the law. I think it's clear we have a bodies, executive and legislative, working together to try to solve a bigger issue. I don't want to make short-sighted decisions. I think what the councilor wants to do is a very short-sighted decision. I think what we're trying to do is establish something with a lot more teeth and strength so that we never have to come back to this position again.
Thank you. Councilor Panich, I'd love us to start getting into the job description questions, please.
Okay, I will be brief, I hope. But back when the United States legislature was a better functioning body, it was absolutely routine to pass technical corrections whenever it was needed. And I think that, yes, we do not like to go against our charter, but a technical correction to the charter to reflect a more deliberative process is not that big a deal. My other point is simply that I know there's been chatter on social media about our terrible turnout for this election. And I agree, 17% is not good. But I would also point out that the referendum to change the charter had a turnout of something like 4%. Referring over and over to the will of the people, when most of the people completely ignored this, is, I mean, yes, this is how we assess the will of the people, but it is hard for me to take the sacred will of the people that seriously when we know how few people actually paid attention to this.
I guess you could say the same about the city council election then.
Well, exactly. 4% is lower than 17.
And yeah, I do mean for us to do some serious work, so I'd like to jump in. So, for example, looking over the CAFO job description, we've looked at this in previous iterations before. I don't see a lot of things that are different, but I do still have some lingering questions. So, in the second bullet point of the CAFO job posting, it does refer to the CAFO implementing and maintaining uniform systems, controls, and procedures for all financial activities in all departments, including the school department, boards, commissions, agencies, or other units of city government, the operations of which have a financial impact upon the general fund and enterprise funds of the city, and including but not limited to maintaining all financial and accounting data and records. So, and I know this came up in our previous iteration of the modernization bill. What is the interaction that we are proposing between the CAFO and our school department in particular?
So I'll just start because this really kind of went down a whole rabbit hole last time this was discussed. The school department is a department of the city, okay? Their budget, their systems, their hiring, their policies and procedures are certainly governed by the school committee, as is their right, and a superintendent and down the line. However, their bank accounts are controlled by the treasurer, not somebody at the school department. Their GL lines are controlled by the auditor or a comptroller, whatever, not somebody at the school department. There is not a day that goes by that the financial operations of the city and the financial operations of the school department are not interacting with one another. And so just like the school department a number of years ago kind of centralized its own financial operations, so they have a CFO essentially, that we would have a CAFO and the two would be able to, work together and down the line. Their payroll flows through the treasurer's office every 2 weeks. The receipts that they hand over come to the treasurer's office and go to the auditor's office to be posted in Munis. This is not about somebody going in to this 57 Suffolk Street and telling them how to do business. This is about making sure that our systems are aligned. Right now, for example, we pay close to $200,000 annually for the city and $200,000 annually for the school department to operate separate Munis systems. And you want to talk about contracted services, you want to talk about redundancy, you want to talk about, and I don't mean the good redundancy, I mean, ineffective, inefficient redundancy. That exists because of these two systems. We've had to essentially create positions just to get these two systems to talk to one another. And so if we want to be really thoughtful about how we can change that and see some real substantial cost savings in the future, we need to make sure that our systems are aligned. So when you see something like that, I think it's really important. And I'm sure that both Sharon and TJ, Sharon because of her lived experience day to day dealing with it, because she's the primary contact dealing with the school department, and TJ, who had this structure and was even more involved in the school department, could speak to it. But it is there. That's the reason why, because it's something every month we have the finance meeting in the mayor's office, the superintendent or the CFO is part of it. Every month we have a city and school finance meeting where the kind of folks, middle management and down, get together and talk about things. And it really is about how are we going to coordinate? What are the things that we're going to be doing? In the next couple of weeks, I'm going to have to produce W-2s. I have to produce W-2s in one system, and then I have to produce W-2s in another system. And for a firefighter that's a substitute teacher, or a teacher that's also a lifeguard, we have to go in there and manually manipulate and do things to make those things work. Where in reality, Counselor Rivera constantly talks about time on task. I can't even tell you how much time on task would be saved if we had a more uniform system. So enough of that.
Thank you. One more follow-up question on the CAFO position. Underneath supervisory responsibility, it says for supervision given, the CAFO supervises all financial department heads and other administrative staff under the direction of the mayor. So just wondering for clarity around, in terms of, who they are actually supervising, would that also include folks in the school department? Would that also include anyone who is doing financial work for the police department, for the fire department? What does supervisory look like for that when there are other, important finance operations happening in these other spots in the city?
Yeah, well, I think that the reality is that, well, two things. The administrative side, because Chief Administrative Financial Officer, there's a member of the collective bargaining team. We spent a lot of time talking about that. Do they oversee the solicitor's office? Absolutely not. But are they going to be part of collective bargaining? Are they going to oversee human resources and the things that happen there? But again, I want to be very clear. The the school department is unique because it's also governed by a school committee. It's its own body politic, but its financial systems are integrated with ours. So it's not about day-to-day supervision, it's about the systems. Now, when you talk about the financial operations or folks that work at different departments, I know we focus a lot on police and fire, but we could say the same thing about DPW. We could say the same thing about the Board of Health. The Board of Health takes in hundreds of thousands of dollars annually, and they have clerks in their office. It's not about overseeing them or doing the hiring and firing. It's about making sure that the systems are aligned and everybody's working in one uniform way, because that hadn't been the way things were being done. We've been working towards that. And like TJ said, and TJ, I don't know if you want to speak to this a little bit, just about in reality, like how these things, you know, when it's munis or, you know, all of that. I'm sure TJ could expand on it.
Sure. Thanks, Rory. Happy just to add a little bit of context to it, because, you know, that's been often the question that we were facing as we shifted to the CAFO, and the language that, you know, beyond the uniform systems piece, like, yeah, the school department's independent. Yes, they have an appropriation at net school spending. There's a lot of collaboration between both sides. And that's really all you want to maintain and make sure that if you're doing munis, you're doing that. But to get to the question of the other financial personnel that may exist, say in the police department, the fire department, the DPW, wherever, those are just dotted line reports where the CAFO has the ability to go in and ask questions and make sure that reconciliations are happening. I think about, I don't know what you call it in Holyoke, but we have the extra detail line that we wanted to make sure that we go in and ask the police analyst or accountant or budget person to say, hey, how are we doing on collections of extra detail? And that's kind of just an example of, okay, then how do we feed that into munis to make sure that our accounts receivable is up to date? And that's kind of the intent of it. Like, you know, even when you talk about some of the other grant functions and some of the other areas of the city, it's just the ability to go in and ask questions and make sure that everyone's on the same page.
So I was going to just add to all of that too, Madam Chair,
Yes.
if it's okay.
Yes.
So we have a system that depends heavily on cooperation between these functions, and it's really about managing expectations under the requirements of the Division of Local Services and how we're managing municipal finance. And so we do have a financial management policies manual that kind of highlights the expectations. So we mean supervise, it's that core function of our government. Although I don't have direct authority, I do have that supervisory authority to make sure that everyone's doing what they're obligated to do, based, you know, on that municipal finance front, whether if it's following procurement laws, making sure things are being done correctly for in accordance to contracts, and, you know, the reconciliation of things. So it's the extension of that and having that supervisory authority over those expectations of what's being managed within those functions of government. So it's less about oversight control of different bodies of our government, more about, you know, strengthening internal controls on supervisory expectations of the loss, and following accountability measures, whatever the policy is, whatever the disciplinary action is, whatever the ordinance reads, because every function is different, right? Like we get Board of Assessors, the staff in the Board of Assessors are overseen by board members. Board of Health staff is overseen by the Board of Health, right? And so those are their accountability boards, but also the mayor, right, according to our ordinance, has authority over managing supervisory expectations of specific functions of our government. So I don't know if I know last time we talked about this, we went round and round, and it's not never black and white, unfortunately, but hopefully we've made it a little clear.
Thank you. Other questions? Yes, Councilor Bacon?
Thank you. I have a question on the last section on the CAFO. I don't have the previous edition in front of me at the moment, but my recollection is that part of the role of the CAFO was that individual would have yes or no authority over the contracts that were negotiated. And this language in here just makes the CAFO a member of a group, and it doesn't even give the CAFO, from my reading of this bullet, and I might be missing something somewhere else in the job description.
Which one, Councilor Bacon?
The
Sorry.
last bullet on the first page for CAFO. But this bullet does not give the CAFO authority over the negotiating. He's a member of the team, he coordinates, he collaborates. I thought the idea was that that person would have the buck stops here authority, and if the contract negotiations were hurting the city, he had the authority, or she, to say no.
You're 100% correct. It was any contract over $10,000 needed to be approved by the CAFO.
Is that gone?
No, that would still be, that would still be the intention.
Is it in here? I didn't see it.
It would be in the ordinance, and I think that's why, going through this, this is what a job description would look like, and then to your point, which is very well taken, that's something that we would want to make sure is clearly delineated in any kind of ordinance, which is why, hopefully from tonight, we can make notes like that. Is something missing here, make sure it's included in an ordinance that would be reviewed by this committee, at an upcoming meeting.
Okay, all right, so I'm a little bit confused. So through the chair, when you filed the order relative to the job descriptions, it said review and approve. But then you amended your motion, your order, to say just review.
You're asking why?
So are you saying that we would be approving the ordinance that will include this later in your thinking?
There's two companion orders, and the first one is approving all the ordinances changes that will be necessary to create this finance department. And then 6 is get on the same page around the job descriptions and review all the minimum qualifications. The reason why, when we were in full council, I asked for us to strike and approve was on guidance that because of certain union contracts, we don't actually have the capacity to, to weed in some of these positions and make changes unilaterally, because it's also contingent on union bargaining. And so in order to get the ball going and keep going, it made sense to remove and approve and to focus instead on the job descriptions and the education and experience required. And then our goal from tonight is to be able to, I think, express where we have consensus so that we can begin for the ordinances to be drafted so they can be brought to us.
Thank you.
I had a question, and I think this is related to the financial orders that just came up. So I was imagining that the CAFO was the one who would be originating the memos or recommendations, and it seemed to me that that was instead falling underneath the role of the comptroller. So it's so I would like to understand why that's been given to the comptroller instead of it staying with the CAFO. From my perspective, it just made more sense that CAFO would be the one doing it.
It's the actual preparation. So I'll let Sharon explain what preparation of a financial order looks like.
Thank you.
Yeah, my understanding or my vision of it is that the CAFO would be in charge of checking the budgets, and if a department had submitted a transfer request, the CAFO would be in charge of verifying the budget amounts and giving his or her okay for it to move forward. At that point, my vision is that the comptroller would actually prepare the budget transfers to submit to council.
Got it. Okay, so the recommendation in the memo itself is still being created by the CAFO, but then the carrying out of that transfer is being supported in the comptroller's office.
That's my understanding. Am I correct there? Yeah. And then when the transfer is approved through council, through finance, it would come back through the comptroller's office to be processed in Munis.
Maybe we should clarify that language a little bit. So You don't have the question?
Yeah, so because it says creates and presents financial orders, and maybe that's just wanting to clarify what that means. And then also, if we are still imagining that this, one thing that's very important to me, at least, I can only speak to myself, not the full committee on this one, but one thing that's really important to me in this process is that when we have financial orders coming in front of us, they're coming with a clear memo structure that has an analysis of the financial impact of a yes vote with a clear recommendation for whether or not we actually have the capacity to move forward with that financial request. Makes me very nervous when we get bond orders, when we get stuff that feels very important. I totally understand that our children in school need roofs that function, but it makes me anxious when I don't have a financial analysis coming with that order saying what's the impact, right, on our bond rating if you say yes to this vote. So it's really important to me that exists, and I want to make sure that the language is clear around that is expected and who is originating it.
So I think I think to Councilor Vacan's another point, very well taken. I think it's a simple fix. It would be in the job description, and how this gets put into a ordinance, whether it needs to be, but for the comptroller position, I would just put another couple of words in the city's ERP system, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what we're talking about. It's preparing the transfers, because keep in mind, I know we're getting into the weeds a little bit, but right now there are multiple systems that a financial transfer has to go through, right? There's a paper form that has to be submitted to different different folks for signature. Then it goes to the auditor's office. They decide if it needs to go in front of the council or not. They actually work with the clerk. They have their own way to enter in that information under whomever is the finance chair, or not, right? If it doesn't. So you can kind of see how there's a lot of work that needs to go into those orders. But to your point, Councilor McGrath Smith, if you look at the third bullet under the essential functions of the CAFO position, it speaks exactly to what you're talking about. Exactly what you're talking about. It doesn't delineate specifically prepare a memo, right? But it
I would
speaks
love us to name it.
Then
because right now it says provides analysis as needed.
Yeah.
I want it to be clear. It's required.
Okay.
You have to do it. Yes.
And I just want to add that to that point. Right now, our system is not set up to be able to provide that information to council. We don't have the capacity, we don't have the staff, we don't have the time. And so this reorganization would give us that ability to do that and provide the more detailed information that you all should have.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to name that.
I have a question for the auditor, unless other folks have other questions on comptroller and CAFO. Sharon, thank you for joining us tonight. One of my questions is, given the new Director of Internal Audit job description, what do you see being different in the day-to-day workflow or focus of the auditor under this new job description? What would change?
Thank you, Counselor. Again, go back to my vision. Right now in the auditor's office, we do not have the time or the capacity to truly audit anything. We spend so much time fixing things after the fact. I envision the audit office now with this new reorganization to be able to check general ledger budget lines, to be able to check deficits. So when we're going to close the year or submit for free cash, we don't have $300,000 in deficits because we're catching it early, right? I envision the auditor to be able to prevent any potential fraud or abuse, things that we just cannot focus on right now because we just don't have the time. And it's just not set up properly, the system, because we have things in our office that we do that I feel do not belong in the auditor's office. As Rory mentioned, the entering people's roles in munis, that should not be an auditor's function, in my opinion. If the budget comes out and goes to the CAFO, that will free up, that's just one instance of that will free up the auditor to do these daily checks on departments, on budgets, on anything. Yeah.
Thank you.
And just to add it, if I could, when you see that job description and you see develop and propose an annual audit plan to the council by March 30th, and TJ again can speak to this because it's actually something that they ordained, that their audits are done by a certain date every year from the previous fiscal year. When we talked with our outside auditors very recently, even just said, hey, like, what would it take? Why are we so behind, right? What is it? Like, even if we had everything, what is the issue? And what we heard back very loud and clear is that there's not one person kind of driving that on the city side. There might be a checklist of here are all the things you need, and somebody might send that checklist out to the half a dozen, 10 different departments that need to respond to that. And then time goes by, and then maybe the outside auditor comes in and says, hey, what's going on? And then they say, let me find out. It really should be somebody that says, here's our schedule. We know what needs to be done. And we're going to, like, on a very regular basis, be checking in so that, June 30th comes around. It's the end of the fiscal year. There is a runoff, a natural runoff of time to wait for some receipts to come in to make sure things are reimbursed. But that auditor would really be there, like, cracking the whip, like, making sure that things are happening, so that we can get our audits done, get back on track on our audits. And it's something the city's always been behind on. And I think it would be great for us to, and TJ, I don't know if you want to speak to how you guys accomplished it, because I know you've got praise. We were on a call the other day, last month, and they were saying, hey, Springfield, TJ's here. Springfield gets their audits done, like clockwork every year,
Yeah, so just to kind of give some background, and then, Rory's absolutely right. When you have one person driving the agenda for an external audit and making sure all the departments are falling into line, that is what the Director of Internal Audit does. But for example, in Springfield, we went from having our books closed probably late September, October, November, years and years ago, to having them closed basically by mid to late July. And then you have the period 13 adjustments, what Rory was talking about, where you have the runoff period to grab the reimbursements for all the grants and all the negative deficit accounts to clean that all up. And then you bring in your external auditor for basically October 1st. And then once you have that audit plan, the audit schedule, you're able to tell everybody what they need to do, when, and all the information. I mean, the beautiful thing now about having Munis is the auditors can log in and grab the data themselves, as opposed to having to be able to provide it. If it's clean and it's in the system, audits go very smoothly.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for our auditor? Okay, hearing none. Could we return to the financial analyst position? This is probably the one that I had the most questions about. And more because I don't know if it was just sort of looking at it in comparison to the others, that it seemed very different to me. And I think maybe it's also because my perception of what a financial analyst is may be different from what seems to be here. I was really surprised by the knowledge, skills, and abilities required section. Seemed like it was really out of place and didn't seem like it was in alignment with the other job descriptions. It looks like it's the old one that was just the general, like, must have computer skills, must work independently, punctual attendance is a requirement. It felt very different, just in terms of tone or in terms of the level of what we were expecting. And it asks for, of all of the positions, less education, licensure, and experience. So it calls for a bachelor's degree or higher in finance, public business administration, or equivalent degree required, in addition to a minimum of 1 year of success in accounting or financial management, or high school or associate's degree with 3 to 5 years of relevant experience with finance, preferably in a municipal setting. It just looked really different to me, and the salary pay rate is 30.98 an hour to 34.81, grade 220 Nage. So I just wanted to sort of understand this more, because I think of financial analyst as like a powerful position. Someone coming in who like a lot of education experience developing, financial forecasting and whatnot. And it seems like that's not what this financial analyst is. And I wonder if it's the right title for what we're asking here.
It's honestly, it's the same title that they use at the school department. That's where we pulled it from. The job description got tweaked for the city's purposes, but especially when it comes to the educational component. I mean, this would be subject to the NAGE contract and what's required, within the NAGE contract. So that's where that comes from. So you can see that it's an equivalent of education and experience, right? So you might have somebody that has 5 years of experience. Maybe they've been working in a bank, right? Right. We hired somebody recently, that wouldn't necessarily be for this position. It's for another position that's on here, and they came from the banking world, but all they have is a high school degree, diploma. But they're wonderful, and they had experience, they met the requirements, they, meet all of the skills. So if it's the title that's throwing, I mean, obviously, this would be a new position to negotiate with NAGE. I think if there was feedback on a different title, we'd certainly be open to that. Yeah. I know at least.
It just seems for the education and experience required, some of these bullet points seem potentially outside of the scope of capacity. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe these people are coming in with this, but they're saying compiles data from multiple sources in order to identify trends, prepare reports, and analyze the financial health of the city for current and future years. That sounds to me like something the comptroller or the CAFO is doing.
So,
sorry. I understand, bullet point 2, payroll management.
Yep.
I understand data entry. I understand I'm doing reports based on information I'm being given, but some of this seems to indicate, even the last one, acts as a liaison to departments by offering consultation and support on best practices, procurement, financial management, applicable laws, regulations, policies, and processes.
So
that seems like such a higher level.
I'm going to ask Sharon to help me with this, okay? Because I'm going to give 2 real world examples, right? The payroll specialist in my department that, if the union agrees, I want to be very clear on this, if the union agrees to these changes, because it is all subject to bargaining, would, move into one of these positions, right? That person helps to manage the payroll operations for the city. Mm-hmm. They don't necessarily have a college degree. They had munis experience. They came from a school department where they had experience. They've worked in the private sector where they had additional management and financial experience. If somebody needs direction, if a department calls and says, hey, I need some help with a pay code, hey, I'm trying to run something down, they're able to provide that guidance. They're able to provide that expertise. That same person also helps with the AP cash disbursement process. So they have an understanding of the banking systems, the AP side of the munis systems, how to search up. So if a check is missing and we get a call from a vendor, somebody in a different department says, hey, I need to know what happened to this check. Why hasn't it been printed yet? That person has an understanding of the system. They're able to go in there. They're able to get that. They're able to provide that assistance to another department. So I completely understand what you're talking about, the way it's written. That is in reality what's happening right now. And in the auditor's office, there's a similar position that does different things. And if you wanted to, speak a little bit about, what that person does.
Yeah, I think the disconnect is I see what you're saying, Counselor, that it is some of these bullet points are a little more high level. Our goal was to have 3 positions that would be cross-trained in every aspect of payroll, accounts payable, and accounts receivable. And that's just, it's more than data entry, But I do agree that they probably would not be analyzing the financial health of the city. So I agree with you there. So maybe we do need to tweak some of these bullet points a little bit. The education, I totally agree with Rory, because I don't feel that a bachelor's is always necessary. If you come to work with the right experience, the employee in our office, she does not have a bachelor's degree, but as soon as I saw that she was entering medical billing, I said, you can do this. So.
And to be clear, my concern isn't necessarily changing the education level. It's that it seemed like a mismatch to me. I don't want to hire someone and put them in a position to say, well, you're required to now be able to do that. And that's not fair. Like I want to make sure that there's an alignment in terms of what we're asking somebody to do. So I don't know if there's a way, for us to look at the bullet points there, because I totally understand them needing to be, I love the concept of them being cross-trained. I think that we should be clear that that's the goal here, even in the job summary, that we're looking for folks who can really be flexible across these, different functions of payroll and accounts receivable and payable. And maybe there's a way of just tightening up the bullet points so it's more clear what the responsibilities would be.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Just we can revisit the bullets. Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I see Councillor Bacon and Councillor Rivera.
Thank you. So a couple of points. I just think the job descriptions should be written for when the position needs to be filled, out from the outside or in a new scenario. And that if we have people who have skills that meet the requirements of the job otherwise, that there's language put into it that allows for an alternate path to achieve the minimums. Because in the general business world, degrees are a routine expectation. So I don't think we'd want to eliminate that requirement from the job description. But we all know of examples of people who did very well that didn't have a paper documentation path to support it. So I do think we can keep it the way it is, but also allow for the exception, as I think we did in at least one of the other descriptions that we worked on in the past. But I do think to have a basic requirement and description, assuming that down the road it will be people that are not here, is important. So,
Absolutely. And just real quick, I know Councilor Rivera, I just want to say, when you look at some of these, this is all very well taken, and I will make sure we can incorporate these and work with, Kelly, obviously, I don't know if she's still on, but if you've ever read the way some of these the existing job descriptions read in the, like if you read the old deputy treasurer, which became the payroll specialist and now would become financial analyst into this, if you read that, you'd think, oh my goodness, we're paying somebody $38,000 a year and they need to run the entire financial operations of the city. They need to know everything from AP to payroll to the benefits administration to everything else. So we're constantly trying to tailor it, make it a little broader, and then focus on that cross training, because that's where it really is important.
And can I just follow up? Can I just also ask that we receive the current pay ranges for the three that would then become the
These are.
Are they already
they're in
on the
here.
sheet?
Yeah. Yep. If you look at the job description,
Yeah.
what I would say is that
Payroll specialist, that's the senior one or the other
no,
one?
the regular
Regular one?
payroll specialist.
Okay.
Yeah, senior payroll specialist is a specialized
Okay.
position. We wouldn't be changing that.
And you said, I think, assistant treasurer?
Yep. So the one thing that I'll just note, when you look at the NAGE salary schedule, like if you look at the NAGE, there would need to be some additional changes. So there's you might have a department and you have two staff in that department. So two NAGE staff in that department. So it might be 1-10 and 1-20, right? 1 being the department and then 10 or 20 being the position. And then you get to a different department and they have 5 people. And then so you might have, it goes down. But what happens is the 120 salary is equal to maybe, the 440 in a different department. I know that gets a little convoluted,
Right.
but
Just the-
thankfully, it's all been approved. You guys recently, or the council recently, updated all the NAGE documents and approved that. So we have that. So the actual impact to the budget and the hourly ranges that you see here are what it would be and what it is.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councilor Rivera?
I forgot what I was
So
going to
I
ask.
wanted to just name that Councilor Anderson Burgos is with us on Zoom and has been for a while. Sorry, my friend. You sure? So one thought around the financial analyst, I think that we've sort of heard that it's three different folks. Can you just say once again what those three roles
Yeah.
are that are becoming financial analyst?
Yeah. So again, I want to be very, very clear because I feel like we're about to start treading into some water because we haven't had this impact bargaining with the union yet. We
Yes.
haven't had
Okay. Fair.
that conversation. So I really want to be crystal clear that we're talking about union positions.
Yep.
This is hypothetical. This is something we'd be talking about with the union. Okay. So there are three positions that currently exist. If you look at the sheet here, you can see which ones are zeroed out and which ones now we have three over. So there's two positions in the treasurer's office and there's one position in the auditor's office. That being said, there's other positions that may open up in the city that folks want to apply. There's no guarantee that the person who holds one of those positions today will move into this position, right? They may leave, they may go on, maybe they don't want, maybe this is not for them. So I just want to be very clear when we're talking about positions that are currently filled,
Yeah.
and especially when they're subject to collective bargaining.
So that is actually one of my last follow-up questions is just around union bargaining. So in terms of the timeline here, so let's say that our next step is to, ask for the legal language for these ordinance changes that will be, required at this point based on these job descriptions and our long conversations that we've been having over the last 6 months. And then we look at that at our next ordinance meeting. Hopefully we get to a point quickly where we have consensus on that language. What is the next step after that? So we, pass language when we're ready to do so back to council. Does union bargaining happen in parallel while we're developing this ordinance language, or does it not begin until after the ordinance language is solidified?
Nothing can happen until the ordinance changes.
Okay.
Nothing can happen. So if you're asking about like what a timeline or transition plan looks like, it's very similar to what we discussed last year. I realize there's some new counselors, which is it's going to take a matter of months for this to actually, everything to be put into place. It's not like the ordinance changing the next day. We have positions that are currently empty that are going to need to be filled. We have positions where we can't move somebody into this position until we fill another position because we need to have somebody in that role, right? What we've been talking about internally is that if this were to pass, what would that look like? And also keep in mind that when we were talking about this, let's say 7 months ago, with an eye towards fiscal 26 and how this would be budgeted, we're now more than halfway through fiscal 26. So even with that, some of these positions that are currently vacant, some money's been transferred out of those lines. When could we actually hire somebody? All of those things become part of the consideration. There would be financial transfers that need to come in front of the council in order to make that happen. But the most important thing is that we know what the structure is so that we can start planning accordingly. So that would be, essentially an ordinance change happens. The very next day, we can start posting for certain positions. And as we're waiting for those positions to be filled, now within the office, we're starting to move pieces around. We can ask the union for an impact bargaining session and have a conversation with them. Some unions are very open to these things. Some unions are not as receptive. They want to spend more time learning and having those conversations. We'd be dependent on the Human Resources Department and the Law Department to lead those efforts. So all of these things, need to take place in order to make it happen. But until the ordinance change, I mean, we have to work with what the current structure is, which was that earlier slide that we went over, and it's what we're all operating under right now.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from members of the committee or anyone on Zoom who's joined us?
I remember now.
Councilor Rivera.
So my question was based on training. Who will be the one doing the training and the cross training of whomever is onboarding or going to be a part of the new system that we're developing? It's important that when we do this training, that they're trained correctly, so that way we're not instilling bad practices that continue to be passed down after another and after another. So it's important that before we take, we can do the parts that we do, but the parts that you guys do are actually like taking on the actualization of changing things and doing the training. So I guess for me, the question is, do we fully understand what are the things that will be changing, right? Because I know that right now we understand some things, but there will be other nuances that will probably arise as we go. And do we have a mechanism, or are we working on something that we can help map out in case those things arise, so that we can make sure we're training people in the way for them to be successful and for us to be successful? I guess that was my question.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I want to expand it a little bit, but I think what's important to note is that some of this work has already started, right? And TJ touched on it. I'm going to ask Sharon to speak on it a little bit more, because she's been part of our project management team since even before she took the role she's currently in, which is, it all goes back to Munis. It really does. When we're talking about these positions, it all goes back to Munis and training. I remember Councilor Vacan, when we talked about this, you get the importance, but also the trainer, right? That we don't want to constantly be bringing in consultants to train us. We need to train ourselves. Exactly. And that's exactly the model that we've been using. And so as we roll something out that's new, we'll pick a department and we'll pilot it with that department, and we'll record all the training sessions. Everybody's invited to it. And then as we work out the kinks and this now works, now we can invite everybody else to have these kind of trainings and be part of it, provide training resources. One of the things that Kelly and I have been discussing with some others is we would actually say internal for our own use, but kind of like, if you're hired for this position, you're expected to, part of your orientation is going to be understanding this Munis module. And in order to understand this Munis module, it's going to be 3 hours of training under this, 2 hours of training under that, and another 2 hours of training under this third thing. And maybe, every couple of years you have to get a refresher. And so, Sharon, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about how things have been working.
Yeah, we're definitely moving forward. We're working with TJ to have the budget entered into Munis directly by the department heads, which is a huge, huge leap forward for us. We're still going to have some paper, starting process as far you won't see the spreadsheets like you usually did. You'll still have all the information you need. It's just going to be directly in Munis. I'm super excited to have a director of technical assistance, because I feel all the progress that we've made and all the improvements that we've accomplished, I feel like we are kind of hitting a few bottlenecks here and there. And I think if we can have someone that just kind of oversees that and runs it and manages it and says, okay, this is our next thing. Now we're going to start having departments enter their own revenues instead of having it in the auditor's office. That'll just to have someone to kind of oversee that and manage it. I'm very excited about that opportunity. But we've done tremendous things over the past year as far as the systems and automating things and getting away from paper, which is always hard for us that have grown up with paper. I know.
Drum for 10 years.
Yep.
Yeah.
And things take time.
And change is hard. Change is hard for some people to accept and move on. But we've made a lot of progress. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to drive the point home even further for you, Councilor Rivera, that the director of technical assistance, that would be one of their primary functions, right? Would be, as a new system's onboarded, as we're trying to do things, making sure everybody's trained and actually getting into the department level and training folks. But then the cross training that would happen, right? So like, you know, I'll give you another good kind of real world example. Right now in the tax collector treasurer suite, let's just call it that because we share office space, right? There's a shared position that works between both of our offices, and that's an administrative assistant position. And then there's the revenue collection specialist, which is in the tax collector's office, right? Now, the administrative assistant has been taking on a lot of work on the treasurer side, helping enter in the cash receipts on a daily basis, right? And actually being able to do that. But the revenue collection specialist is more than qualified to be able to do that. They sit across from each other the same way, like if we were sitting on the other sides of this table right here. But because of the way the offices are split up in the duties, one can't train the other on what they're doing, right? But the two of them have a skill set that we would want to have cross-trained. So there's going to be cross-training that can happen colleague to colleague. And then there's going to be cross-training that would happen, you know, within the department itself, right? So
Are you saying they can't do it because of the union?
just because of the
Definitions?
because of the definitions. And listen, I'm not trying to say like anyone
I just wanted to
has made a
understand.
complaint, but it's not the role of the
That job.
tax collector's staff to enter cash receipts on behalf of the treasurer, right?
Yeah.
But then there's things where, you know, vice versa, they can train. And there are certain things that they do help out with. You know, payroll is another great example, right? So there's a lot of payroll functionality that happens in the treasurer's office, but right now, the Sharon, and even before she was in this role, I mean, I don't want to say half her job, but you know, a big portion of her job is working on the auditing the payroll, getting the payroll done, and then actually the mechanics of what that means, right, within the system. And so to be able to have something like that all fall under comptroller, where now you can really start getting people, you know, cross-trained and working together, because the person in her office touches payroll in some way, the person in the treasurer's office touches payroll in a different way. If we get them working in the same office, we can get them cross-trained on some of what that function is.
Thank you. Councillor Bacon, follow up?
Thank you. Just one general request that I have on the job descriptions that include accounting. I know we've included degrees in finance and public administration, et cetera, et cetera. Can we please put accounting? Because it's a unique degree.
Sure.
And general finance degrees aren't the same as accounting.
No, that's a point well
And
taken.
we need accountants,
Yep,
in my opinion.
yep.
Thank you.
Yes,
And I'm not saying somebody couldn't do the work,
No.
but it's
No,
a unique
we can
education.
We can certainly do that. And one thing that I want to point out, with all of these kind of high level positions, right? Like, I don't want to. We could say like kind of department head, like division head or whatever. Every single one requires additional training or certification, right? So we want the treasurer collector to be a certified treasurer collector. We want the you know, some folks to have the MCPPO, purchasing officer. We want to have folks get the government financial officer certification. There's an actual auditor's certification that we've never asked our auditor to be certified for before, but it's the Massachusetts Municipal Auditors Association. Let's name that. Let's say that within 3 years you should get this certification, like we do for the assessors and everything
We
else.
could see accounting listed
Yeah.
there. I think it would go a long
That's easy.
ways.
That's
Yeah.
very easy.
Thank you.
I want to thank everyone tonight because I feel like we got some really good work done. And I know that we still have a few items that we left on the table.
So do you
Counselor
want a
Bacon, can I
motion?
ask your will on item 6? We could take it up and we could leave it on the table, or we
So,
could discuss
okay.
it and have it complied
So
with.
here's the thing.
What's your will on that one?
We,
Because we did already discuss it in many
we
ways.
cannot do anything with item 6. Item 6 is a received and adopted and passed order by the city council.
Yep.
A committee can't act on a copy.
No.
So
So just to your will, would you
There-
like us to mark it complied with, or
it's not complied with.
do you want
So
us
you
to
could
leave it
just
on the
receive
table?
it.
Or receive
Just
it?
receive it
Okay.
because it doesn't mean anything.
So,
If-
I have a motion to take up item 6.
But if we took it up already and we dealt with it, is it not
We,
complied with?
we did discuss it, and I just in the context of
But it
the
got voted
earlier
on.
items, but we never officially took up
I'll make
item
a
6.
motion to take up item 6 for the purpose of receiving it.
Thank you.
Second.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
We did,
Can we take item 2 off the
we
table?
can, yes. A motion to take up item 2 off the table.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So item 2, again, this is from Jane Mentaleski, our Assistant City Solicitor. Approval of zoning ordinance should be pretty quick. Just wanted to name that we did receive this. It says a question has come up regarding the amendment of zoning ordinances pursuant to MGL Chapter 40A. Specifically, the question arose whether or not the City Council can take action on a proposed ordinance after the close of its public hearing, while the Planning Board's public hearing remains open and the Planning Board has yet to issue a recommendation. I believe this was in response to was this in response to the short-term?
No, it was in 2024.
Oh, so
It
it was
was
older.
a long time ago.
And then it says the courts have interpreted this statute, and they just sort of name the relevant piece here. Before the adoption or amendment of such an ordinance by a city, there must be a public hearing before the planning board, and then a second hearing before the city council or a committee designated or appointed for the purpose. Is there anything else that anyone wanted to name specifically to this?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Bacon.
I would just note that there is nothing to preclude the planning board and this committee meeting at the same time.
Yes.
For the purpose of facilitating the process relative to the hearings.
Yes, and I'll also state just also named the relevant statute around the planning board. It says, in a city, such an amendment must be submitted to the city council, which within 14 days must refer the amendment to the planning board for review. Thereafter, the planning board has 65 days during which to hold a public hearing with notice provided beforehand, at which members of the public can offer their views on the amendment. Once the hearing has been held, the planning board then has 21 days to provide its recommendation to the city council. Thereafter, the city council may adopt, reject, or amend and adopt any such proposed ordinance or bylaw. The city council must, however, act within 6 months of the planning board hearing. The zoning change or amendment will not be enacted unless it receives a 2/3 vote from all members of the city council. Is there anything else that folks want to say in response to this? It's just been sitting in the jacket for a long time, so I thought it
Yeah.
made sense to put it forward and make sure it was read into the record. Yes, Councilor
Just long
Panich.
enough to drop a small footnote,
Yes.
which is that the state legislature did amend the zoning law to make it a simple majority vote in some cases. I don't think that Holyoke is ever going to actually be affected by this, because most of it has to do with affordable housing and
dense
housing
housing.
density and
With the MBTA?
MTA
the
region?
zoning?
Yeah.
Oh, that's going to be, yeah.
yeah, so we don't really need to worry about it, except that it is no longer a blanket 2/3. We do look to see and make sure before we do anything.
Fair. All right. The motion would be to
receive?
Yes.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And thank you to everyone who came and presented tonight and shared their expertise with us. Appreciate you. All right. Motion to adjourn?
To adjourn.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all.